All right, if you turn to Matthew chapter 18. Matthew chapter 18 verse 1 says, And at the same time came the disciples unto Yahshua, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Yahshua called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe unto that man whom the offense cometh. Alright? I'm going to stop right there and let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Yahshua, I just pray this afternoon, Yah, that you help me this afternoon to preach your word. Help me, Jehovah, to be filled with your Ruach Kodesh. And I pray as this little child with a simple, childlike faith, Jehovah, we can believe on thee and do your work. You said, this is the work of Yah, that we believe on him whom you had sent. And Yahshua, with this simple faith, Jehovah, I pray I preach the simple message, the simple truth, the simple foundation, the simple saving faith, Jehovah. And I pray, Yahshua, this afternoon you bless each one of us. Fill us with your Holy Spirit, Jehovah. And I pray you bless this time together. In thy precious name I pray. So be it. So I've been wanting to talk more about the foundation of truth. And the Holy Spirit led me to these verses. It's all continues. Alright, the message still continues. Alright. If we look at Matthew chapter 18, let's start back up and read verse 18. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask it, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Alright? Notice what he said. He said, for where two or three are gathered together in my name. Alright? There am I in the midst of them. We're not gathered in a building. We're not gathered in a cathedral. We're not gathered in a synagogue. We're not gathered in a place of worship. We're gathered together in his name. Alright? It's a simple faith. Alright? And this is what Yahshua wants. Turn to Hebrews chapter 5. Hebrews chapter 5. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 10. Called of God and high priest after the order of Melchizedek, of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk, and not of strong meat. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on to perfection, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works and faith toward God. Okay? What is the foundation? It's the foundation of repentance from dead works, from lawlessness, from breaking Torah. That's the foundation of repentance. And part of the foundation is faith toward God. Faith. Faith and works. Repent. You're breaking Torah. You're sinning. You repent. You keep Torah. You call upon God. You ask for forgiveness. You believe in Him. You believe every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Father. Notice in chapter 5 of Hebrews, verse 12, towards the end of the part, or verse 12. For the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles. What are the first principles? Okay? To understand the first principles, you go back. You go back to the beginning. You go back to Genesis. You start from the beginning to understand the first principles. The law was the schoolmaster to bring us to Christ, to bring us to Yahshua. All right? So we have to cover. That's why I'm covering the first principles, the foundation. Right? This is what we've been covering. And why have I been going way back to cover this? Because you can't go on studying the so-called deep things of God if you don't understand the first principles, if you don't even believe, if you don't even have faith in Yahshua, if you don't understand the top from the bottom, if you don't understand the end from the beginning. You have to start from the principles. And I'm led to teach this whole thing. I have been teaching it for the last almost 2 months. All right? I feel led and I feel blessed for doing it. I feel like if we can get the foundation, which I said before will take the longest time, because it's the first. Everything's built upon it. If you built your house crooked, everything above it will be crooked. And all you're going to do is it's going to fall down and you're going to have to start over anyway. So you might as well start from the beginning, the truth. All right? The church of the living God, the Apostle Paul said, which is the pillar and ground of the truth. What are these first principles? What is the milk that he speaks about? The first principles of the oracles of God, or the words of God. What does the first principles teach? And are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. All right? So Yahshua taught these first principles. All right? Turn to Gospel of John chapter 4. Gospel of John chapter 4. Verse 1. Okay. When therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Yahshua made and baptized more disciples than John, though Yahshua himself baptized not, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again into Galilee. He must needs go through Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Yahshua therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahshua saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Yahshua answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, And who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink? Thou wouldest have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. Living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? Yahshua answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up to everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Yahshua saith unto her, Go, call thy husband, and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Yahshua said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidest thou truly. The woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain. Now she's bringing up her religion. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Yahshua saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Yahshua saith unto her, I that speak unto thee, and am he. Alright? We're going to remember this, what Yahshua is saying. We're going to remember this chapter. Alright? What Yahshua is teaching. Alright? He's teaching you that neither in this place nor yet at Jerusalem will ye worship. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. What? Alright? He seeketh such to worship him. He's teaching you the simple faith. Alright? He's teaching you what he meant in Matthew chapter 18 when he said, Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. A little child has simple faith. A little child has trust and faith. And that is what Yahshua said. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. You will not enter through the gates to the city. You will not be found worthy. Alright? Yahshua teaches something here at the well. Remember where he's teaching it. He's teaching it at a place called Jacob's well. He tells you that the water that he gives shall be in him a well of water springing up to everlasting life. Alright? It's a well that springs up to everlasting life. Alright? Let's turn to Matthew chapter 15. Listen to what Yahshua says. Matthew chapter 15, verse 1. Then came to Yahshua scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die to death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of God none effect by your tradition. Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draweth near unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. What is Yahshua saying? He's telling these scribes and Pharisees that they worship him in vain. They don't have childlike faith. They have religion. They have such religion that they even boast. It's so complex that I can't even explain it unto you. They boast. They make traditions. They add commandments, and they break the true Torah. Yahshua said, Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. All right, turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Yahshua says, in vain do they worship me. 1 Corinthians 15. The Apostle Paul says in verse 1, Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I have preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand, by which also ye are saved, if ye keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye have believed in vain. All right? Unless ye have believed in vain. You're supposed to stand firm on the foundation, unmovable. All right? Verse 58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of Jehovah, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in Jehovah. All right? Turn to Galatians chapter 4. Galatians 4. Verse 11. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. What's he warning about? Unless ye have believed in vain. Unless I have bestowed labor upon you in vain. It's the same thing that Yahshua was warning against and teaching against. The leaven of the Pharisees. The leaven of the doctrines of men. Yahshua taught, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Yahshua didn't come to create a religion. He didn't come to teach extra things. He didn't add to the Torah. He didn't take away from the Torah. He didn't make a complex hierarchy. He didn't create some religion. He restored the first principles. The times of restoration and refreshing cometh from Jehovah. He said, the hour has come and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. It's the simple faith that he taught. It's the simple faith that saves. All right? Let's turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 3. First Thessalonians chapter 3. Verse 5. For this cause, when I could no longer forbear, I sent to know your faith, lest by some means the tempter have tempted you, and our labor be in vain. So Apostle Paul, he mentions it time and time again. He's worried that somehow the congregation will go from simple faith in Yahshua Mashiach, his blood atonement, to something else. He talks about the tempter. Lest by some means the tempter or the Satan have tempted you and our labor be in vain. Remember, the Apostle Paul says, I have laid the foundation, but let him be careful how he buildeth thereupon. For none other foundation can any man lay than that which is laid, which is Yahshua Mashiach. He says, let him be careful. Let him take heed how he buildeth thereupon. When Yahshua lays the foundation, he is the stone. He is the stone of stumbling and the rock of offense. He is the rock. You built it upon the profession of Peter. Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Yahshua says, and thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church. Be careful. Paul warns, be careful that how you build upon. It's a simple foundation. It's the first principles. All right? You have to be careful. All right? Gospel of John, chapter 10. Go back to Gospel of John. Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them. All right? He's the shepherd. And the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him. For they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Yahshua unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. Then said Yahshua unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. A child can only understand this. A child that is born again in the Holy Spirit. And if you're saved and you have ears to hear, you understand perfectly what Yahshua said. A stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him. For they know not the voice of strangers. Just like a child will not go near a stranger, knowing it is dangerous. Okay? Knowing the voice of the shepherd, the voice of their father. It's the childlike faith. Alright? Who comes but to destroy and to steal? Alright? It's the wolf. It's the Satan. Alright? He tries to complex things. He tries to make being saved such a complex thing that you got to do. You got to dot your I's and cross your T's, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and you got to do all these things like washing your hands and wearing these long garments and all these other things. They strain at the net, but they swallow the camel. It's the childlike, simple faith. The simple foundation that saves you. Alright? Don't let any man tell you otherwise. If any man tells you otherwise, they're a thief and a robber. They're out to steal from you. They're out to rob you. Alright? Yahshua says, but in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Yahshua says, I am the door of the sheep. He that entereth in by the door to the shepherd of the sheep, to him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice. And he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. He leadeth them. He leadeth you. Where is he leading you? All right, we'll get back to it. Turn to Hebrews chapter 3. Listen to the warnings. Hebrews chapter 3. Let's look at verse 15 or 14. All right, actually I want to start back in verse 7. Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost saith, today if ye will hear his voice. Yahshua talked about the sheep hearing his voice. Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost saith, today if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation, in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation, and said, they do always err in their heart, and have not known my ways. So I swear in my wrath, they shall not enter into my rest. Alright? Remember what Yahshua taught in Matthew 18. I've said it like 5 times. I'll say it again. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. You're going to enter someplace. Why? Because the shepherd's leading you somewhere. He's leading you somewhere. You have to follow the shepherd. And there's wolves out there. And they're going to try to catch the sheep. And they're going to try to pull the sheep away.
and they're going to try to deceive the sheep and feed them with all a bunch of garbage, all a bunch of complexity, all a bunch of religion, all a bunch of doctrines, commandments of men. And they're going to try to wreck you. They're going to try your house. They're going to try to blow it down. You remember the story of the 3 little pigs? Who comes to blow the house down? The wolf. Wonder who made that story up. I wonder what he had in mind. The wolf cometh to destroy. And I'm telling you, what Yahshua taught is the simple faith. It is not hard. All right? Yahshua said, make the tree good and its fruit good. Or make the tree evil and its fruit evil. For a tree is known by its fruit. That's the foundation of repentance. When you're born into this world, you're born naked. You're born blind. Someone had to clothe you. Someone had to carry you. Someone had to lead you. It's a type and a picture of the truth. You've been taught the gospel your whole life. You're blind and naked and helpless. But your heavenly Father picks you up. All right? He picks you up and he clothes you. Your father and your mother. Okay? And you're clothed. And you're taught. As a child, you remain in your father's house until you become married and you're joined to your wife. It's a picture. The prodigal son. These are simple truths that Yahshua taught. He taught about one son. He left his father's house and he ruined his life. He repents. He says, I'll go back to my father's house. He wants to be a good tree. He goes back to his foundation, where he came from. See, you're born into a family. You're born into a house. Every house has a foundation. Every house has a purpose. Yahshua talked about a place of worship. It's a place, but it's not made with hands. It's simple faith. It's not hard, guys. You're created by Yahshua Jehovah. That's your Father. He already has the law in your heart. When you sin, your conscience is affected because you've broken the Torah, which is spiritual. Okay? He leads you to repentance. Here in Hebrews, the Apostle Paul, he's talking about the children of Israel, which again, they're taken out of the land of Ham. They're taken out of bondage because somewhere in their lives, they went into bondage. They went into darkness. All right? And what happens? Jehovah sends a deliverer to save them. It's all a type of the gospel. All right, let's go back to Hebrews chapter 4. All right, go back to Hebrews chapter 4. It says, but exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. For we are made partakers of Christ. Listen to that word, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. Okay? While it is said today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts as in the provocation. For some when they had heard did provoke, howbeit not all that came out of Egypt by Moses. But with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And to whom swear he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed not? So we see
that they could not enter in because of unbelief. They didn't have simple faith. They couldn't enter in because of unbelief. Yahshua says in Matthew 18:1, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. All right? Let's turn to Matthew chapter 7. Gospel of Matthew chapter 7. Not everyone that saith, Matthew 7 verse 21. Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. All right? And then he gives the parable of building your house upon the rock. Notice how he goes from one to the other. People don't have their faith built upon the rock. What did Yahshua say? They could say, Lord, Lord, all they want. They will not enter in. They worship, Yahshua says in Matthew 59, but in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Turn to Matthew chapter 23. Let's look at verse 13. All right, he goes on, verse 13, but woe unto the scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Who are the scribes and who are the Pharisees? Every chapter in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Yahshua is rebuking, Yahshua is warning, Yahshua is condemning them to hell. Listen what he just tells them. He calls them, woe unto them, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. How will Judaism, which is based on this teaching of the scribes and Pharisees, get you to heaven? It won't. It will send you to hell. Verse 15. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing, but whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifieth the gift? And we're going to talk about the altar in a little bit. Verse 20. Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar, sweareth by it, and by all things thereon.
And whosoever shall swear by the temple sweareth by it, and by him that dwelleth thereon. And he that sweareth by the heaven sweareth by the throne of God, and by him that sitteth thereon. Alright? And I'm going to skip down to verse 33. He closes, he says, Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Their religion is in vain. They are not little children, and they shall not enter in the kingdom of heaven. Alright? Notice back in John chapter 4, Yahshua is speaking to the Samaritan woman at the well. Yahshua is speaking to her at Jacob's well. Last Sabbath, we talked about the children of Israel crossing Jordan, going as if it was through the gates into the promised land. How they're entering into the kingdom of heaven. Alright? The children of Israel, before they crossed Jordan, they camped. Alright? They camped with their face toward Jericho. Turn to Deuteronomy chapter 34. Deuteronomy chapter 34. Verse 1. And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. Okay? They're facing Jericho on the other side of the Jordan River. And Jehovah showed them all the land of Gilead unto Dan, and all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea, and the south and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, unto Zoar. And Jehovah said unto him, This is the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over there. Notice Jericho is called the city of palm trees. Okay? Remember, I've been teaching how when the children of Israel crossed the Jordan River, they carried 12 stones of memorial. They carried these 12 stones. Okay? Talked about the 12 stones of witness. The 12 stones of memorial. Alright? Turn to Exodus chapter 15. Exodus chapter 15. Let's look at verse 23. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? What shall we drink? They're murmuring. They're murmuring. And he cried unto Jehovah. And Jehovah showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. They're thirsty. What did Yahshua do when he's at the well? He was thirsty, and he asked for water to drink. And he taught the woman that the water that Yahshua will give to drink will be within him a well of water, a well of water springing up to eternal life, everlasting life. Okay? They're at the waters of bitterness. They can't drink the water because they're mara, they're bitter. And they start to murmur and they start to complain. They lack faith. You understand? They're scorners. They're unbelievers. They have no trust in God. They only see what they see with their eyes and what they can touch. They don't trust Jehovah. They don't even believe, even after all the miracles coming out of Egypt. We read that in Hebrews. Who was he grieved with for 40 years? Was it with them that transgressed? That murmured? They could not enter in because of unbelief. He was grieved with that generation. He said they will not enter into my rest. His rest is heaven. Okay? The seventh day rest. It's a type and a picture. The Israel's being led to the promised land, the land of rest. Okay? This is all the gospel. The volume of the book, Yahshua said, is written of me. Verse 26. And said, so there he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. He's going to try them. Like a school. You got to pass kindergarten to go up. You got to pass first grade to move up. Okay? And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of Jehovah. Didn't Paul talk about this in Hebrews? Today, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart as in the provocation, in the wilderness. Yahshua says, my sheep hear my voice. And they know me. And they follow me. The voice of a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from them. Jehovah says, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of Jehovah thy Elohim, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am Jehovah that healeth thee. Jehovah Rophi. Jehovah Rophi that healeth thee. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. All right? Look at verse 26. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees. And what did they do? They encamped. They encamped. They lodged there by the waters. Why is there 12 wells of water? Okay? There's 12 wells of water. How many stones did the children of Israel carry? 12. Now we have here 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. When they crossed the Jordan River, they're facing Jericho. Jericho is called the city of palm trees. Okay? Notice the similarities. 12 wells and 12 stones. Jericho, a city of palms, and 70 palm trees. Alright? And notice also, when they come to Elim,
where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. They encamped there by the waters. They're camping by the waters. Okay? Turn to the book of Joshua, chapter 3, where we've been reading the last couple weeks. Joshua chapter 3. Verse 1 says, And Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim, and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. They come to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, which is facing Jericho, the city of palms. And what did they do? They lodged there before they passed over. All right? They lodged there. In Exodus 15 verse 27, there are 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters. All right, let's keep going. Remember the stones that they're carrying. In 1 Peter 2:5 says, Ye also as living stones, lively stones, are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices, holy and acceptable unto God. Peter talks about, you are also lively stones. They're carrying stones. I think last week Cindy mentioned every person in Revelation, they get a stone with their name written upon it. All right? A new name. From Exodus 15:27, where they come to the 12 wells of water, to Joshua 3:1, where they cross the Jordan River, to John the Baptist, he crosses at the exact same place. You come to Yahshua at Jacob's well. It's all leading you to where? To worship him in spirit and in truth. All right? Where's the foundation of true worship? They're carrying 12 stones. These stones are not brick and mortar. It's forbidden to build an altar where a tool has come to it. It's forbidden. All right? It's not dead religion, but it's true worship in spirit. But they that worship me, Yahshua says, must worship me in spirit and in truth. All right? Turn to Genesis chapter 4. We're going to touch upon the simple faith. How did people worship before? I mean, how was it done? All right? Genesis chapter 4. Verse 1 says, And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Jehovah. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Verse 3, And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Jehovah. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Jehovah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Jehovah rejected the religion of Cain. Outright, he rejected it. All right? Turn to same chapter, but let's look at verse 26. You're going to notice, though, Cain was the firstborn. That is the priest after the order of Melchizedek is the firstborn. There were no Levites back then, which were of the tribe. That's why they had to redeem the firstborn of every tribe, because only Levite was going to be the priest. But when Yahshua comes, he restores it back to the way it was before, which was the firstborn son. Okay? You're restored back. Alright? Here in Genesis chapter 4, verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also was born a son, and he called his name Enosh. Then began men to call upon the name of Jehovah. When did they start to do? They start to call upon the name of Jehovah. What did Yahshua say? Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Did Yahshua say, go and build me a temple? Did Yahshua say, go and build a building? Did Yahshua say, go and cut some bricks and go get some mortar and build me an altar with steps? No, it's forbidden in the Torah. What did Yahshua say? Unless ye be converted and become as this little child, ye shall no wise enter in. He tells the woman at the well, verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is come, and now is, that they that worship the Father must worship him in spirit and in truth. Okay? He said, neither in this place, nor yet at Jerusalem, shall they worship the Father. What are people doing here in the very beginning, the very first men of the earth? What are they doing? As soon as they're born, they come of age, okay? What do they start to do? They start to call upon the name of Jehovah, because they know Jehovah created them. They know he's the only true and living God. They know the true faith, because Adam and Eve walked with Yahshua. You understand? Adam and Eve walked and talked with Yahshua, Jehovah Elohim. They knew Jehovah Elohim. They taught their children to worship him. Was it so complex? No, their children, they pray. They call upon his name. Right? Yahshua says, worship, the Father seeketh those to worship him in spirit and in truth. Simply by faith. Okay? It's not outward works. You don't have to dress up. You don't have to put on long robes and wear these so-called psychiatries and all these things. It's simple faith. That's all it's always been. The gospel's always been simple. Okay? We're going to keep reading here. Turn to Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12, verse 6. And Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land. Okay? And Jehovah appeared unto Abram and said, unto thy seed will I give this land, and there builded he an altar unto Jehovah, who appeared unto him. He builds an altar. Okay, I want to check something in John chapter 4. Keep your hand here. I want to reference something. Okay. When Yahshua is going to the well, it says in John chapter 4 verse 5, Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Okay? Here in Genesis, it says, And Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Sichem. It's Sichem and Sychar. I don't know if it's the same place.
Mine's the same.
What?
Mine says the same.
Okay. I kind of had the feeling it was. I didn't have this written. But here's another. This is where.
It's the spellings.
It's the spelling, okay? This is where, I'm telling you, when Yahshua says, in the volume of the book it is written of me. Now, the place that Yahshua is telling the woman to worship him in spirit and in truth is the same place, Sychar or Sichem. Okay? Jacob's well. Okay? Where Abraham builds an altar. So my point is this. To worship him in spirit and in truth, all you need is simple stones. And what have I been teaching the last month and a half? Ye as lively stones are built up a spiritual house to offer up a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices, holy and acceptable with God. What was not acceptable with God? The worship of Cain. What was acceptable with God? The worship of Abel. What did Abel offer up? A lamb. The firstling of a flock. What do you think he learned that from? From Adam and Eve. Where do you think Adam and Eve got it from? From Yahshua. So they're teaching the gospel. What's the faith of all the scripture? What is it? It's always taught. What's the religion? What is it? It's always been Yahshua. It's always been Yahshua. His blood atonement. Okay? You've always been saved through faith in Yahshua, the Lamb of God, that taketh away the sins of the world. The same place that Yahshua is at the well, is the same place that Abraham builds an altar. Okay? Who appeared unto him. Yahshua appears unto Abraham. Okay, let's keep reading. Make another point. Genesis 22. Genesis chapter 22. Verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here am I. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee unto the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering thereupon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And by the way, Mount Moriah is the exact place where Yahshua was offered and crucified. The exact place. You guys seeing these similarities? The exact same places in the Old and in the New. The exact same places. It's one continuous story. Okay? It's all connected together. So Abraham, he goes to the mountain. He's going to the place of Golgotha. Okay? Wasn't called that Golgotha, but it's called Mount Moriah. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his horse, and took of his 2 young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide here with the horse, and I and the lad will go yonder and what? And worship. Yahshua says, they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth, and come again unto you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. Okay? And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of Jehovah called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withholden thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Jehovah called the name of that place Jehovah Yireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of God it shall be seen. Notice he builds an altar. He builds an altar. Okay? And he calls the name of the place. He calls it by a name. Turn to Genesis chapter 13. Let's go back. Genesis 13. Verse 14. And Jehovah said unto Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abraham removed his tent, and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is Hebron, and built there an altar unto Jehovah. He builds an altar, all right? Let's turn to Genesis chapter 26. Remember what Jehovah does here too, because this, I believe, it also connects to something else. He shows them Abraham, he says, look northward, southward, eastward, and westward. He has them look. And we read earlier how Moses went to Pisgah, the mountains of Moab, to the plain of Moab, to Nebo, to the mount of Pisgah. And he's shown all the land of Gilead and Dan and Naphtali. Notice that Abraham's looking all around him. He's looking at all the land. He's seeing the promise afar. That's how faith is. You're given the promises, and you're looking to heaven. It's afar off. But you know that God's promised you the land. He's promised you heaven. He also does the same thing to Moses. He says, look all around you. Okay? But Moses couldn't enter in because he struck the rock. All right? That rock was Christ. Turn to Genesis chapter 26. And verse 20. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him. And they digged another well, and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah, and removed from hence, and digged another well. And for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, for now Jehovah hath made us room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up from thence to Beersheba, and Jehovah appeared. He appeared unto him the same night, and said, I am Elohim, the Elohim of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake. And this is Isaac, all right? And he builded an altar there, and called upon the name of Jehovah, and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants digged a well. Now here, you have everything included, all here in those verses. Okay? What does Isaac do? He builds an altar out of stones. He calls upon the name of Jehovah. It says, and pitched his tent there. He pitched his tabernacle there. Okay? Remember when they came to Elim, okay, in Exodus 15:27, and they came to Elim where there were 12 wells of water, 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and it says, and they encamped there by the waters. Okay? And then we read how the children of Israel, when they came and faced Jericho, they encamped, they lodged there before they passed over. You see the similarities? They encamped, meaning they set up the tabernacles in Elim by the 12 wells of water. The children of Israel, they lodged, they set up their tabernacles before they pass over Jordan. Here, Isaac's doing the same thing. He builds there an altar there, and called upon the name of Jehovah, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. Okay? There's multiple wells here mentioned in Genesis 26. At least 5 of them. Okay? There's wells. And why is there altars by the wells? And why are the wells named sometimes? And why are the altars named sometimes? Jehovah Rofi. Jehovah Nisi. Jehovah is my banner. Why? And at the altar, what do? They call upon the name of Jehovah. Yahshua is at the same well, Jacob's well in Sychar, telling the Samaritan woman, they that worship the Father must worship him in spirit and in truth. He taught the simple faith. Okay? Yahshua taught these things at Jacob's well. In Exodus 15:7, and they came to Elim where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. And they encamped there by the waters. They're encamping by the waters. Notice that. They're encamping by the waters. Yahshua sat down by the well. He was traveling and then he encamps. And he stops there by the well. Okay? And he talked about the waters that he gives shall be in them wells of water springing up unto everlasting life. All right? Turn to Psalm 23. Psalm 23. You guys should know this by heart, but there's something in Psalm 23 that teaches you the simple true faith. Those that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Psalm 23, Psalm of David. Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He leads you beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Jehovah forever. Olam. Notice that Jehovah is the shepherd. Yahshua said, I am the door of the sheep. Yahshua says, I am the shepherd of the sheep. Yahshua says, my sheep hear my voice, and they follow me. The voice of a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from them. For they know not the voice of strangers. Why? They're children of the Most High. They are sheep. His sheep. Alright? Psalm 23 verse 1. Jehovah is my shepherd. I shall not want. Jehovah Yireh. Jehovah provides all your needs. Jehovah Rofi. Jehovah Nisi. Alright? These are the names of the places. Yahshua says, neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem shall they worship me. We have within us, or in this place, as living stones, we have an altar made without hands. And what do we do here every Sabbath? We worship Yahshua, the Father, which is the Father, in spirit and in truth. We call upon his name and we offer up spiritual sacrifices, holy and acceptable unto him. Alright? And he leads us beside the still waters. And he provides all our needs. Alright? Where is Yahshua Mashiach, our shepherd, leading us? He's leading us through the gates to the city over Jordan. You're coming from Gilead. Gilead was the place that Reuben and the other tribes said, it's a good place for pasture, well watered, for our flocks. But you don't stay on the other side Jordan. You got to cross Jordan. Where did they cross from? Facing Jericho, the city of palms.
They're crossing, they're encamping, they're crossing. They're taking up stones with them. What were stones used for? All throughout Scripture, from the very beginning, to set up an altar. When they set up the altar, the rocks one upon another, the stones one upon another, they call upon the name of Jehovah. From the very beginning, this is the worshiping Him in spirit and in truth. All right? They worship simple faith. They call upon Him by faith. Where is He leading? Through the gates, through the city. That city where He's leading us is called Mount Zion, New Jerusalem. The place where He chose to put His name, to put His peace. Turn to the Gospel of John chapter 18. He's leading you like a shepherd. John chapter 18. Verse 1. When Yahshua had spoken these words, He went forth with His disciples over the brook Cedron, where was a garden, into the which He entered and His disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed Him, knew the place, for Yahshua oftentimes resorted there with His disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, cometh there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Yahshua, therefore, knowing all things that should come upon Him, went forth and said unto them, Whom seek ye? And they answered Him, Yahshua of Nazareth. Yahshua saith unto them, I am He. And Judah also, which betrayed Him, stood with them. And as soon as He had said unto them, I am He, they went backward and fell to the ground. They bowed down. Then asked He them again, Whom seek ye? And they said, Yahshua of Nazareth. Yahshua answered, I have told you that I am He. If ye therefore ye seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled which He spake of them. Which thou gavest me, have I lost none. He didn't lose none of the sheep, except for Judas, which should betray Him. All right? Yahshua leads the children of Israel from Egypt, the land of Ham, the land of bondage, to Mount Sinai, to the cleft of the rock. And from there He leads the children of Israel to beyond Jordan, across from Jericho, where they pick up 12 stones of witness, 12 stones of memorial. He's going to lead you all the way up to Jerusalem, Yahrusalim, the place where Yah, His peace, placed His name, placed His peace. And another thing that I just found out this week, if you go from Mount Sinai to Jordan, over here is Mount Hermon, the Mount of Transfiguration. You get to Mount Lebanon, you get to Antioch, and right here is a place called Jonah's Pillar. Remember, Jonah was in the belly of the fish, or the whale, whatever, for 3 days and 3 nights. Yahshua says, no sign shall be given to this generation but the sign of Jonah. Yahshua was in the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. He also gave a sign. What Yahshua said, He says, talking about the temple, He said, destroy this place, the temple, and in 3 days I will build it up again. All right? Yahshua is talking about the temple
made without hands. What is a temple made without hands? It's a spiritual house. Ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Yahshua Mashiach. All right, let's turn back to John chapter 4. And we'll close with that. John chapter 4. Verse 21. Yahshua saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship. For salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. All right, let's pray.